imagine an AI, right, that doesn't just give you answers, but actually thinks through problems, almost like a person would.
Mm.
And what if that same AI could, say, build you a working web app from scratch?
Yeah, it sounds a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? But that's pretty much what Google's new Gemini 2.5 Pro is aiming for.
Okay.
And look, this isn't just some minor update. We seem to be looking at an AI that reasons step by step, and its coding skills. They're really making people take notice.
Seriously, like an AI watches a video and then builds an app based on it? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, yeah. I mean, it scored nearly 85% on a tough video understanding test.
Wow.
And then, yeah, use that understanding to generate actual working software.
Okay, that's something else.
Exactly. So today, we're really going to dive deep into this Gemini 2.5 Pro preview.
Good.
Get ready, because we'll explore some pretty remarkable capabilities, and you'll get a real sense of what this could mean, for development and maybe even beyond.
So the big question is this the thinking AI that could really change things? Let's find out. By the end of this, you should have a much clearer picture of what makes Gemini 2.5 Pro tick.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Gemini 2.5 Pro, what's the big picture? Give us the overview.
Right. So think of Gemini 2.5 Pro as Google DeepMind's latest, most advanced AI model right now.
Okay.
What really sets it apart is how it combines strong language processing with actual reasoning abilities. Plus, it has this sophisticated understanding of images, videos, and really impressive coding skills.
And they released it early, before their big I/O event.
Exactly. And that timing, releasing it as an early preview, it speaks volumes, really.
Yeah, what does that tell us?
It suggests they're super eager for developers to just start playing with it, start experimenting with these cutting-edge features right away.
Right, get it out there. Shows confidence, I guess.
Absolutely. They apparently saw this huge wave of interest in the earlier version, Gemini 1.5. So they're clearly keen to get this even more advanced version into the hands of people who can really, push its limits.
Makes sense.
By offering this preview, they're basically saying, look, here's a glimpse of the next generation of AI.
Yeah.
Start imagining, start building.
And for us, it's a great chance to dig in.
For sure. A fantastic opportunity to really understand what makes 2.5 Pro different and, importantly, what practical value it offers, like right now.
So the Pro name, what does that actually signify compared to other Gemini models we've heard about?
Good question. The Pro label tells you this is the more powerful version within the Gemini 2.5 family. It's specifically built for tackling more complex, more demanding tasks.
Like what kind of tasks?
We're talking advanced logical reasoning, solving tricky math problems, understanding and generating complex code, and processing really large amounts of information.
Okay.
In fact, Google's been quite clear that Gemini 2.5 Pro currently ranks among the top AI models anywhere for both coding ability and advanced reasoning.
Right, and it has that huge context window too, doesn't it?
Exactly. That massive 1 million token context window.
1 million tokens. That just sounds enormous. Can you, put that into perspective for us? What does that actually mean?
Sure. So think of tokens as the basic units of information the AI works with. Roughly, you could think of them as words or parts of words.
Okay.
1 million tokens means the AI can hold and process the equivalent of, say, a pretty hefty novel or maybe a very large, complex technical manual. All at once.
All at the same time.
Yeah, in one go. Which means developers can feed it entire code bases or massive data sets for analysis in a single pass.
Wow.
And that just opens up possibilities that, frankly, weren't really feasible before this.
I can see how that kind of memory, that processing power, would be incredibly appealing for developers.
Definitely.
So, okay, let's dive into this idea. You mentioned a thinking AI. What exactly does that mean when we talk about Gemini 2.5 Pro?
Right. The core concept here is something called chain of thought reasoning.
Chain of thought.
Yeah. So instead of just trying to predict the next word, like older models might, Gemini 2.5 Pro internally goes through a series of deliberate steps, much like, a human might when tackling a complex problem.
Like showing your work in math class.
Exactly like that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The AI isn't just jumping to the answer. It's following a logical pathway to get there.
Okay.
And this step-by-step process, generally it leads to more accurate results, more coherent responses. Because the model is actually, analyzing and deducing, not just matching patterns it's seen before.
So it's like the AI is sketching out its thinking internally, even if we don't always see those steps ourselves.
Precisely.
That sounds really important for building trust, right? Especially for critical uses.
You nailed it. Google is really emphasizing this aspect of internal reasoning. The thinking is, if an AI can show a logical progression towards its conclusions,
Then you can trust it more.
exactly, its output becomes more reliable, more trustworthy. And that's crucial in fields like enterprise software, scientific research.
Yeah.
Anywhere, accuracy is absolutely paramount.
Makes sense. And how did they actually train it to think like this? Was it specific training methods?
Yeah, from what we understand, it builds on techniques like reinforcement learning.
Okay.
That's where the model gets rewarded for, correct and logical reasoning steps.
Right.
And they also use specific kinds of prompting strategies during the training itself. They explored this in earlier Gemini models, but with 2.5 Pro, it seems they've really scaled these techniques up significantly.
So they're essentially teaching it to break down big problems.
Exactly. Break complex problems into smaller, more manageable parts, and then solve them sequentially, logically.
And the results? Are they actually seeing impressive performance on these reasoning tests?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When they tested on benchmarks designed specifically for reasoning,
Yeah.
Gemini 2.5 Pro has hit top rankings across a whole range of challenges, including things like math and scientific reasoning problems.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, it scored 18.8% on something called the Humanities Last Exam.
Humanity's last exam.
Uh.
Sounds intense.
It is. It's a really difficult set of questions put together by experts. And that score, 18.8%, is currently a leading result for models that aren't, relying heavily on external tools or very specialized tricks.
Wow.
It really highlights the model's ability to actually grapple with and solve complex problems designed by human experts.
That is genuinely impressive. An AI tackling questions that challenge even human experts.
Yeah.
That really underlines the advanced reasoning they've built in.
It does.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit. We've talked about how it thinks. Now let's talk about what this thinking AI can actually do. We're hearing a lot about its coding skills, its multimodal abilities.
Yes, exactly. This is where it gets really practical, where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
Gemini 2.5 Pro is definitely being positioned as a major leap forward for software developers.
Mm-hmm.
And its ability to understand not just text, but also images and videos, that opens up a whole world of new possibilities.
Okay, let's start with the coding then. What makes Gemini 2.5 Pro stand out there?
Well, for starters, it's currently ranked #1 in AI web development skills.
#1. Based on what?
Based on evaluations by human developers, which suggests it can design and write code for web apps really competently and in a way that human evaluators actually find effective and, preferable.
Interesting. Any examples?
Yeah, there's this interesting anecdote from a tester at a startup.
Okay.
They used 2.5 Pro to tackle a really hard job refactoring some complex back-end code. And they described the experience as being like working with a highly skilled senior developer.
Wow, okay. That's a strong statement.
It really is. It implies the AI isn't just like spitting out code snippets. It seems to actually understand the underlying logic and structure of software.
So it's not just code generation, it's more like code comprehension and strategy.
Something like that, yeah.
And are we seeing this pop up in developer tools yet? Any interesting integrations?
We are actually. Replit,
Yeah.
the popular online coding platform.
Yeah, I know Replit.
They've expressed a lot of enthusiasm for integrating Gemini 2.5 Pro into their AI tools.
Why them specifically?
Well, their president specifically mentioned Gemini's best capability over latency ratio.
Capability over latency, meaning?
Basically, it offers a very high level of intelligence, really strong abilities, without a significant lag in its responses.
Oh, smart and fast.
Exactly. And that's critical for coding assistants, right? They need to be both smart and quick to be actually useful day to day.
Yeah, you don't want to be waiting around.
No. Imagine having this AI co-pilot right in your coding environment that gives you intelligent, rapid help with writing code, editing, debugging, maybe even generating big chunks of your application.
That sounds powerful. But it's not just the back-end logic, right? I heard it can handle the visual side, too, like user interface design.
That's right. It's been trained to understand and generate code for, aesthetically pleasing, user-friendly web interfaces.
Well, how does that work?
It can take things like style guides or even design files as inputs and then produce the matching CSS code, the code that controls the look and feel, colors, fonts, layout, all that stuff.
So it saves developers time on the fiddly visual bits.
Potentially, yeah, a significant amount of time they'd otherwise spend manually tweaking visual elements.
Any demos of that?
Yeah, they've shown it seamlessly integrating things like video players into existing web apps, keeping a consistent visual style just based on simple prompts. Another example showed it creating an entire voice recording web app, complete with animations and responsive design, adapting to different screen sizes.
All from text prompts.
All from simple text instructions, apparently. It seems to have really developed a strong grasp of good design principles in its code generation.
So it's bridging that gap between function and form. Could be a huge efficiency boost. Okay, now let's move on to its multimodal abilities. It's not just text and code, is it?
Not at all. Gemini 2.5 Pro has inherent vision.
The vision.
Meaning it can interpret and reason about information presented in images, diagrams, videos.
Yeah, and is good at it.
Seems so. That impressive score, 84.8% on the Video ME benchmark. That really highlights its ability to understand complex visual stuff within videos.
Right, you mentioned that score earlier.
Yeah, and one really compelling demo showed it taking a single educational video.
Okay.
And automatically generating an interactive learning application from it.
Wait, really? From a video?
Yeah. Think about that potential. You feed an AI visual content, and it doesn't just understand it, it builds something functional based on that understanding.
That is incredible. Turning video into an interactive tool automatically. What other kinds of visual inputs can it handle?
Well, the potential is there to interpret things like maps and charts, understand design sketches.
Sketches too.
Potentially. And even perform actions like, say, doing a web search or using other tools mid-task to gather more info based on what it's seeing.
So it can combine seeing with doing.
Exactly. This ability to combine visual understanding with its text and code processing. It really opens up completely new ways of working.
Yeah, I can see that.
Imagine asking it to analyze a blueprint, then generate code for a related part, or look at a quick sketch of a UI and start building the actual app from that visual.
The combination of understanding text, code, and visuals.
Yeah, that sounds like it could really revolutionize how we create things, streamline development.
It could.
Now, for our listeners who are thinking, okay, I want to try this, how can they actually get access to Gemini 2.5 Pro right now? Is it available?
It is, but mostly for developers currently. The best way is through the Gemini API in Google AI Studio.
Google AI Studio. Okay.
Which is a great platform generally for experimenting with Google's latest AI models.
Right.
For businesses, enterprise users, it's also available as a preview on Vertex AI. That's Google Cloud's big AI platform.
Got it. Any cost involved?
Well, it's worth noting Google Cloud often gives out free credits for new accounts, so that can be a great way to explore Gemini's capabilities without an initial investment.
Good tip. Anywhere else?
Yeah, the Gemini app itself, especially if you have access to Gemini Advanced.
It includes features like Canvas, which lets you build web apps using simple prompts. So that's another way to experience some of these advanced features.
Okay, and if someone wants to really get started coding with it,
I'd recommend searching for Google AI Studio Gemini Quick Start. That should point you to the right resources, documentation, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Good to know it's already accessible, at least for developers and maybe curious users too.
Yeah, they definitely want people using it.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit now. Think about the bigger picture. How does Gemini 2.5 Pro fit into the very competitive AI landscape?
Yeah, it's definitely a crowded field. Gemini 2.5 Pro certainly makes a strong statement, right? With its benchmark performance, that unique million-token context window.
It shows Google's serious.
Absolutely. It demonstrates Google's strong commitment and, their position in the AI race. But it's important to be a bit cautious about definitive comparisons right now, especially before we see more independent evaluations, more data on how it performs in, real-world situations.
Good point. Benchmarks aren't everything.
No. And this field moves incredibly fast. Competitors like OpenAI and others, they're also advancing rapidly.
True. It's a constantly evolving landscape. So what about potential downsides, challenges, limitations with a model like this?
Yeah, there are definitely things to consider. Even with all its advancements, it's still AI.
Meaning it can make mistakes.
It can make mistakes, yes. And it can potentially reflect biases from the data it was trained on. That's always a concern with large models.
Right.
That huge context window, too. While it's powerful, it does raise questions about computational cost. How much power does it take to run? And does that affect response speed sometimes?
Efficiency and speed, okay.
And right now, access is still mainly for developers and enterprise users. So wider public feedback is only just starting to come in.
And it's proprietary, right? Not open source.
Right. It's a Google product, a proprietary model, which is a factor for people who prefer or need open source AI solutions.
Okay, so looking ahead then, what are you anticipating we might see from Google and Gemini 2.5 Pro, say, in the near future, especially with Google I/O coming up?
Yeah, Google I/O is definitely the place to watch. I would fully expect to see some significant demos of 2.5 Pro's capabilities.
And like live demos.
Possibly live demos, yeah. And almost certainly announcements about integrating it into various Google products, things we use every day.
Like what?
Like Bard, maybe Google Assistant, Docs.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps even deeper integration into Android, into Workspace.
Oh, interesting. Anything else on the horizon?
Well, there has been a hint about a future model called Gemini 2.5 Flash.
Flash sounds fast.
Exactly. The idea seems to be a version designed for faster performance, lower computational cost, for maybe less intensive tasks.
Okay, a lighter version.
Yeah, but the overall trend seems clear, making these really advanced AI capabilities more accessible. To developers, to creatives. We'll likely see AI-powered assistants becoming more integrated into the tools people use regularly. Think Android Studio for app development, maybe even Google Sheets for data analysis.
AI help right inside the tools.
That seems to be the direction. And for anyone wanting to see more concrete coding examples now, I'd really recommend checking out the official Google Developers blog. They have a post specifically on the coding improvements with links and details.
Good resource.
And trying out sample prompts in Google AI Studio, watching any demo videos Google puts out, that's also really informative.
And keep an eye on I/O.
Definitely keep an eye on the announcements from Google I/O for the absolute latest news. Ultimately, I think Gemini 2.5 Pro really has the potential to empower a huge number of users with very advanced AI.
It certainly sounds like a truly transformative technology. Lots of exciting possibilities ahead. Thanks, that was a really thorough deep dive into Gemini 2.5 Pro.
My pleasure.
So, to wrap things up for our listeners, what would you say is the key takeaway, the main thing to remember from our discussion today?
I think the key thing is that Gemini 2.5 Pro represents a really significant step forward for AI, particularly in its ability to reason logically, its advanced coding skills, and how it understands different kinds of information, text, images, videos.
Right.
And the fact that Google put out this early preview, it really highlights their enthusiasm and, their desire for developers to just start exploring what's possible right now.
We definitely encourage you, our listeners, to share your thoughts. Any questions you have about Gemini 2.5 Pro, let us know in the comments. We're really interested to hear what you think about this new thinking AI.
Absolutely. And we invite you to keep exploring these fascinating technologies on your own. Stay engaged with this field because, well, it's evolving incredibly quickly.
It really is. Okay, here's a final thought for you to ponder as we finish up. Consider how an AI that can genuinely think, that can understand the world visually and logically, how might that fundamentally change not just how we build software, but maybe how we interact with information and technology in our everyday lives? Something to think about.